So if any of you miss out, I do put these lectures up on our website. If you go to our website, stevenson-temple.ca, and then you click on, it says Dharma Talks, you'll find Sunday services as well as these lectures on there. So anyways, getting back to where we were. So Kukai in 804, he joins an entourage going to China. So the emperor sent the imperial palace sent an entourage to China, and part of it was to do with politics or state official state business, but also at the same time, the emperor wanted Buddhism to be imported, more Buddhism to be imported. More specifically, he wanted esoteric Buddhism to be imported. Now, the reason why this was important for the emperor was because esoteric Buddhism has to do a lot with mysticism, right? So in order to protect the country, he felt that this was something that would be benefit the country. So the emperor wanted to have more of the esoteric teachings imported to the country. So interestingly enough, on the same voyage, we have both Saicho and Kukai on the same entourage, the same group. So two of the greatest Buddhist monks in Japan were contemporaries with one another. And just like Saicho, actually Kukai stayed for a very brief period in China, only a couple of years. However, during that short period, he was able to establish himself as a master of esoteric Buddhism. There's records of him in China arguing or studying the esoteric Buddhism and having debates over it and being very, very influential and I guess wise towards this esoteric Buddhism. I don't know whether he had learned Chinese before he went to China. I'm assuming that he probably did. He did study under some of the Chinese monks that were in Japan as well. So I'm assuming they had a good knowledge of Chinese before they went, to the point where he could actually debate about the doctrines. So upon his return from China, Kukai returns to then the capital in Kyoto. And in 810, he's appointed actually as the superintendent of the Todaiji, the main school in Nara. So it goes to tell you how well received he was and how truly, I think he must have been a very charismatic and brilliant individual in that 810. So that would have been when he was, let's see, if he was born, when was he born? 774, right? So in 810 meaning what? 36 years old, he became the head of the Todaiji Temple in Nara. And so it's written that in 812 that he performed the ordination of 145 individuals. So we have in our denomination, or every Buddhist school actually, has its own ordinations now. But back again, at that time, it was a state-run Buddhist temple. So the monks had to get ordained at Todaiji. So he does that, but he began to worry. Kukai began worrying about the fact that he felt it was getting too political, and he didn't want that in the teachings. So he actually begs the emperor to leave from as a superintendent of Todaiji, and he's given a small piece of land, parcel of land on Mount Koya, and he erects a monastery there in August of that year. So this is 816. Now, because of his great prowess, however, the emperor wanted Kukai still involved. And so in 823, he's appointed by the emperor to erect what's called Toji. This is now in the city of Kyoto. So Todaiji was the one that's in Nara with the large Buddha. Toji is in sort of the center of Kyoto. If you go to Kyoto, it's actually pretty close to our mother temple, Nishi Honganji. Actually, just south of the Kyoto station, you can see this very large pagoda. So if anybody's ever gone to Kyoto and you've gone on the bullet train, you always see this temple as you come into the Kyoto station. If you're coming in from the west, from Hiroshima direction, you'll see it. And then you'll see it if you're, well, anyways, it's just south of the Kyoto station. You see a very large pagoda, and that's the pagoda at Toji. And so what Kukai did was he then named Mount Koya as a center for practice and Toji as the official center of esoteric Buddhism in Japan. So Toji was sort of like the administrative headquarters, and the Mount Koya became the place of practice for this esoteric Buddhism. And Kukai actually became more and more famous, and his expertise went far beyond just the religious realm. He became known for his wisdom in various fields, and has been given credit for making temples, roads, irrigation canals, and also legend has it that he was the one that created the simplified Japanese kana script, the A-I-U-E-O kana script. It's said that he wrote a poem, Iro Hani Hoheto, which it's a poem that I think all elementary school children have to learn. But the uniqueness of this poem is that it has every single one of the kana alphabet, if you will, in this one poem. And I've got it at the very end of today's notes. Maybe I'll just go down there just so you can see it. Where is that? The very end there. Oh yeah, here it is. So, Iroha ni hohe to chiri nuru o wakayo tare so tsune naramu. Ui no okuyama kefu koete, kyo koete, asaki yume mishi, yoi mo sezu. So this is a poem that incorporates every single alphabet, letter in the alphabet. And in translated to English, although its scent still lingers on, the form of a flower has scattered away. For whom will the glory of this world remain unchanged? Arriving today at the yonder side of the deep mountains of evanescent existence. Evanescent? That doesn't sound like the right word. We shall never allow ourselves to drift away, intoxicated in the world of shallow dreams. So this is a poem that legend says that Kukai wrote, but in fact, it's been disproven. In fact, it's been said that it was actually written sometime after he passed away. So it couldn't have been Kukai who actually said this. But what happens, as I mentioned, is that over the course of time, his legend just seems to grow to the point where um, there are places throughout Japan. You can go to most places in Japan that have some kind of legend associated with Kukai. And as I mentioned last week, um, in Kyushu, but where my wife is from, Oita, right on the border of Oita and Kumamoto, the two prefectures, there is a onsen spa called Tsue Tate. Tsue means staff and tate is to stand. And the legend said that, Kukai visited there at one time, and he stuck his staff in the ground, and the hot springs came up from that staff. And that was the main source of hot springs for that spa. So that kind of legend exists with Kukai throughout Japan. You can go to many different places, and there's some kind of story about him being associated with that place. And I guess it's great for tourism because people flock to those places thinking, oh, it's got some kind of mystical power to it. But one of the other things that transpired after his death is that where he was born, the island of Shikoku, there are many places on Shikoku that have some association with him. Places like where he was born, etc. And so it's not clear when it started, sometime after his death, but there is a pilgrimage that occurs on this island of Shikoku. It's called the 88 Temple pilgrimage. And when they go from temple to temple, and you're supposed to walk from temple to temple, and it's become actually world famous now, and people from throughout the world will go on this pilgrimage. There's another famous pilgrimage in Spain. I can't remember the name of it. Maybe one of you know the. Oh, Judy, you know the name. What is? Oh, what was it called? What's it called? Do you remember? Yeah. So, anyways, this 88 temple pilgrimage has become very famous, and it would take one. Well, there's 1,200 kilometers to walk the whole thing, and it would take 30 days to 60 days to do if you were to walk. Some of the temples you actually have to go over mountains and along the way, what's interesting is that there's a whole culture that's developed. So these pilgrims, they're known as Hendo. And usually the Hendo, you could recognize them because they have three things that they'll carry. One is a white robe that they wear. White is actually the color that they clothe the people who have passed away. So with these Hendo, it's supposed to be an outer worldly experience, so not of the mundane world. So they wear these white robes, and they'll also have this pointy straw hat that they wear, round straw hat, pointy straw hat. And then they also carry the staff with them when they walk around. And they go from temple to temple. And along the way, there are inns and there are places that accommodate these pilgrims. And also, because of this pilgrimage, the people on the island of Shikoku, they try to support these Hendo people. So strangers will come up to them and give them like onigiri, rice balls, or give them something to drink. And so they walk. So traditionally, they would walk from temple to temple, 88 temples throughout the island. Camino. Okay. Camino de Santiago is the pilgrimage in Spain. And so thank you, Judy. And Judy, who's at the temple here, she actually walked that. Said. So number of years ago, I can't remember how many years ago it was now, we actually had the BC Buddhist Federation Convention in Vernon, and they actually had a person from Vernon who had walked this 88 temple pilgrimage. I don't believe he's a Buddhist, but he went there because his son was studying in Japan, and his son thought it was a good father and son experience. So he actually went there. And he said that the feeling of gratitude at the end of this pilgrimage was something that really he felt from the depth of his heart. And I guess it's, for him, he said, like, he and his son, they pitched tents in many places and stayed overnight, like in the grounds of a temple or Shinto shrine. And he said it was quite a moving experience. Nowadays, there are many who will go to the island of Shikoku, and they'll do it over a course of like 5 years. So they'll take their holiday, because they can't take 30 to 60 days in a row. So they'll take their holidays and they'll go maybe do a week of it 1 year, and then they'll start up again the following year, etc. Others now you can go by car. So some people go from temple to temple by car, and some take public transit. So they'll take the bus to an area close to the temple, get off, walk to the temple, get back to the bus, and then go to the next site, etc. So this is the pilgrimage that is associated with the Kukai. So Kukai passed away in 835 at the age of 61. Now, according to the Shingon beliefs, it is said that Kukai is actually in a form of deep meditation. Very similar to last week, I said Saicho is seen to be still living in Mount Hiei. And there was that one practice where one of the monks has to look after this very small temple where they said Saicho still exists. And they have to make breakfast and meals for Saicho. It's very similar idea with Kukai. If you go to Mount Koya is very interesting. I was there in 2019, and around where Kukai is said to be, there is also a huge, and I mean huge, cemetery. And it's not just, it's literally kilometers long, and it's in the middle of the mountain. Actually, I think I might be able to share. Let me just pull something up here. Let me just pull something up here. I think I have actually. No, I don't. I thought I had pictures from that trip. Anyways, I don't have it on readily available, but it's amazing because the grave sites on there. Some of them are like, there's one that's shaped like a large rocket. Some of them are actually companies that have purchased these grave sites, and their employees actually get put in there. And there's one that some engineering company, there's a shape of this large rocket made in, I guess, granite stone or shape. But this literally hundreds of these very large grave sites. And then at the the furthest in is they call it the Okunoin, is the temple where it said that Kukai still exists. And so every morning they make breakfast and take it to Kukai, etc. And so he's supposed to still exist in there. And he's in this what we call the Tusita heaven. I mentioned that in our fall seminars, that the historical Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, is said to have come down from this Tusita heaven. And so Kukai is said to be in that existence. And he's supposed to come back as the future Buddha, Buddha Maitreya, when he comes back. So after he passed away, he was given this title, Kobo Daishi, which is great master. And we actually have in Seattle there, I don't know if they still have it, but there is a temple in Seattle for Kukai, the Shingon Temple in Seattle. And this is before I became minister here, but I know there are quite a few families here in Steveston, because they came from Wakayama, and Wakayama is where Mount Koya is. There were families who followed both Jodo Shinshu as well as the Shingon practices. And so some of the older houses actually had a couple of shrines, like our shrine as well as their shrine. And once a year, I was told that they used to actually take a bus trip down to Seattle. And some of you may have heard of the term Odaishi-san, Odaishi-san. And that's reference to this Kobo Daishi, okay? And so the temple, the Shingon Temple in Seattle is called Odai, people colloquially call it Odaishi-san. And they would take this bus trip from here annually. I know some of the older Eastern Japanese Canadians used to go on that. So perhaps some of your parents you might remember them going on a trip to Seattle. So this Shingon, which means Shingon literally means true words, or it's filled with mysticism, esoteric rites. Okay. And there's a whole set of mantras, mystical words, mudras, gestures of the body that they use, and mandalas, diagrams representing the universe, as well as various tools. And this is part of also what they call Vajrayana Buddhism. Vajrayana is the diamond. Is it Vajrayana? Diamond vehicle Buddhism. And that's what you find in Tibetan Buddhism. So there's a lot of similarity between Tibetan Buddhism and this Shingon teaching, okay? And it's based on two major sutras, Dainichi Kyo, Mahavairochana Sutra, and the Kongo Chokyo, or the Vajrasekhara Yoga Sutra. And Kukai actually wrote a treatise on this, and basically, much like Saicho did with the Tendai teachings, he broke down the different levels of depth, of understanding, of not just Buddhism, but Kukai also incorporated other teachings. So you have it there right in front of you. The animal existence, the heart of a foolish boy who fasts, the heart of a young boy without fear, the stage of no self, the stage of Pratyeka Buddhas and early Mahayana beliefs, and the 8 denials of Sannon, the oneness of ultimate reality, the universal independence, and finally, Shingon esotericism. So if you go down these paths or different levels, okay, in the end, the most important one is this Shingon. And so what it was believed was through the mysticism or esotericism, that one could connect with the ultimate reality of the universe. So it transcends our rational thinking. It transcends even our everyday language. It's very, very specific. There are mystical words, mantras, mudras, different hand positions, etc. And I am not an expert at this by any means. So, but it was believed that through these mystical ways that they could channel and become one with the ultimate universe. And what's interesting about this is that the center of their universe is what we call the Vairocana Buddha, which is the great sun Buddha. Okay, and this is one of the reasons why esoteric Buddhism became very popular with the courts of Japan, because in Japan, the native goddess in Japan is the sun goddess. Amate. I need help here. Where's Tomoko-san?
Amaterasu.
Amaterasu.
Hey, can you pronounce that again?
Amaterasu.
Amaterasu Omigami.
Yeah.
Okay. Omigami. Is a sun goddess. Is the native deity or supposedly the founder of Japan, if you will, the goddess who formed the island of Japan. And so when the great sun Buddha comes into Japan, there's this overlap between the two. So it's very well accepted by the imperial palace. Okay. And so as part of this, what Kukai as well as Saicho, they did was they imported from China these mandalas. There's two in particular called Kongo Kai Mandala and Taizo Kai Mandala, or the Diamond World Mandala and the Womb World Mandala. Okay, and these mandalas are depictions of the truth, and the diamond mandala is the diamond world mandala. Diamond world is the infinite world. This is the absolute world, whereas the womb world mandala, womb is the world of, literally it said the world of the matrix. I'm a fan of the movie The Matrix, so this is the world of the Matrix. Okay, it's our existence. So it's the comparison of the water and the wave, right? The waves exist. We can see the waves existing, and that's represented by the womb world mandala. Whereas the diamond world is the water itself. And so the diamond world mandala is very interesting because it's traditionally it's made up of these 9 panels. Okay, so they also call it kue mandala. Ku means 9, and then e is pictures. Kue mandala. So made up of these 9 panels, and in each of these panels, so the central figure here is this Vairocana, or the Buddha, the great sun Buddha. And then in each of these smaller ones, you have 5 little Buddhas in different circles. Okay, and these are known as the 5 great Buddhas. And if you see larger depiction of it. The five great Buddhas that they talk about, and of course, so in the center you have the Sun Buddha, but you also have the uh, Ashku Nyorai in the east. Now, what one thing that I was kind of confused with, or let me see if I could blow this up a bit. It gets really grainy. Okay, maybe you could Google it yourself. When you look at it, there's five Buddhas, and for some reason, when I looked it up, it said that the top of this. So normally, the way I would think of things, I would think as the top as being north, right, and the right hand side being east, and the bottom as being south, and the left hand side being west. But in fact, that's not how it is. The right hand side is said to be the north side. Okay, so in the west, which is actually the top of each of these circles, is said to be Amida Buddha. So Amida Buddha existed as part of the cosmos of esoteric Buddhism, but wasn't the central figure. Okay, so this is very important to remember as we get along down the road. This will change, right? So Amida Buddha was just one of many Buddhas that existed. Okay, so he's the Buddha of the West, and you have different Buddhas in the four directions, with the Sun Buddha being in the center, and so this is the diamond world mandala. And the womb mandala is interesting enough. It actually is a little different. It has the center with the sun, the great Sun Buddha, and then it has corresponding Buddhas at the four corners with other Buddhas surrounding it. Now, this is a depiction is saying that the heart of the universe is this Buddha, and all others sort of surround it. Now, if you look at this diagram, and if you compare it, let me just bring up something else here. And I think that was in our second, just bringing something else up here. I think it was in our second session. Let me just bring something up to share with you. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. So this is Borobudur Buddhist temple, and where was this? Malaysia. And as you can see, it is actually the same depiction as this. So if you look at it in a 3D model, right, this is what it is, okay? So it's with this, the great Sun Buddha being in the center. And again, so so traditionally what they would do at the Shingon temples is that they would have the two mandalas facing one another on the sides, okay? And then the practitioner will be in the center. And through the esoteric practices, they will be able to connect the two existence, the diamond, the clear existence, and then also the womb, or the the matrix existence. So between those two, using their mantras, their mudras, their mystical ways, they are able to connect the two, and so the universe then gets all connected as one. Interestingly enough, this really isn't that far off from our beliefs with Amida Buddha. In fact, it is said that the Nembutsu, or when we recite Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu is said to be, there's a word in Japanese, we call it Kiho Ittai. Kiho Ittai. Ki is the vesicle, us. Ho is the Dharma. And Ittai is one. Okay. So through the name Namo Amida Butsu, we become one with the infinite, right? So very similar to this, through their mantras, through their mudras, it's said that they tie in together with the universe. Okay. Now, I would get probably some Shinshu scholars might scold me for saying that, because they'll say, no, it's nothing like that. But that is just my take on things. Okay. So don't go around to other Shinshu scholars and say, oh, it's very similar to the Shingon mysticism, because they'll tell you, no. And so, yeah. Anyways, that it is what it is. Yeah, so very similar to that. And I think in all practices of Buddhism, there is actually an element of the universal coming together with the finite, which is us, right? So that's what we're doing when we're coming in contact with something that is greater than our everyday existence. Okay. So that's a very brief introduction to Kukai and this Shingon school of Buddhism. Now, mandala is actually, interesting enough, there are many different forms of mandalas. In fact, I don't know if some, actually, give me 2 minutes. I'll be right back. I have some examples of mandalas to show you. Let me see. Let me just stop sharing for a second. Okay. So those of you who have been to our temple, you've seen these up in our hondo. Oop. Maybe I can get closer. This is actually also a mandala. The mandalas can be pictures like this that tell the story of a sutra. And this is one of the Pure Land mandalas. This is a larger sutra mandala. So this is telling the story of Amida Buddha, what we call the larger Skavati Vyuha Sutra. Okay, so it can be depicted as a story, or depicted as a picture telling a story. Okay, so that's one kind of mandala. And this one here, we were actually gifted this. This comes from the collection of Bruno Petzold. Bruno Petzold was the father of Arnold Petzold, who was the architect of our temple. Arnold was raised in Japan, and his father was very much became very interested in Buddhism. In fact, he even received his Tendai ordination. So this one is actually a version of the womb mandala, but instead of having, let me see if I can see this. Instead of having images of the Buddha, it actually has Sanskrit written on it. So these are actually the Sanskrit titles of each of the Buddhas. But it's very similar to that womb mandala that we saw with the picture of the Vairocana Buddha in the middle, and then all the other Buddhas surrounding it. So this is also a version of that. Instead of the images, it has the Sanskrit. And this final one, this one actually comes from my own collection that I got through my, I guess it's through my grandparents originally, but this actually comes from that Koji, the Eastern Temple in Kyoto. And here, this is just a print of, I can't get that out. Make that up. There's little Buddhas. Okay. And this also is supposed to be part of the womb mandala. Just a small portion of it. Anyways, sorry. The mandalas come in different forms and they tell a different story. And it's interesting because according to the founder of Jodo Shinshu, Shinnan Shonin, he has said that better than a statue is the scroll with a picture of the Buddha, and better than the scroll of a picture of the Buddha is actually the name of the Buddha. So you'll find some scrolls, just like this mandala that had the Sanskrit instead of the images of the Buddha. The reason why they say better, the name is better, is because when we look at images or statues, our minds automatically become discriminatory. In other words, when you look at a statue of Amida, you automatically think of he or she. You've already discriminated, you put a gender to it. But a name has no gender associated with it, right? So what Shinran is saying is that the name has less discrimination associated with it, because the infinite really does, once you start discriminating, or once we have a discriminatory mind, we've limited it. And just as these Shingon, the esoteric words, the mantras, the Nembutsu also is a way for us to encounter the infinite. So we shouldn't be attached to a certain image, or so that's why the name Shinan said is better than an image, which is better than a statue, he says. Okay. Okay, any questions or comments? I'm gonna remove my spotlight, and yeah, please feel free to join in. Anybody?
Reverend Grant,
Yes, Les.
is meditation a part of the practice at this point in these two schools?
In which school?
In these two, in the Shingon school.
In Shingon? Yeah, so meditation is a very important aspect of the Shingon school. Through their meditations. So meditation is one form or one way of encountering the absolute. But in their meditation, so meditation, there are actually many different forms of meditation. Okay. You can sit quietly as one form of meditation. You can do, there's active meditation, or chanting is a form of meditation. So there, and the goals of meditation can also vary. There are some schools that through meditation, they aspire for enlightenment. With us, meditation helps us to focus, clear our minds, but not necessarily, it's not the main focus in Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. It doesn't mean that we can't meditate, but it's not necessarily emphasized as much. But in other schools, of course, meditation is the primary practice. So Zen would be a perfect example of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, hi, Sensei. It's Rosie. Listening to this and trying to take it all in, and then in my mind traveling to what it would have been like in Japan when this Shingon with Kukai was practiced, this esoteric, this mysticism. How were the everyday peasant? We know the court, the royal court, the government was looking at Tendai and this, but what about everyday persons? Like, how mysticism usually has so much mystery around it, and it's something that almost like I'm not putting anybody off, but like the Masons, where you belong to this sect, this group, and that way you're part of this inner circle. What about the group, the larger group of people? How was it seen for them?
Well, and I think this is where, as I mentioned, Kukai went beyond the boundaries of Buddhism. So he was known for building like irrigation trenches, etc. So he even actually introduced them to how to build a dam with some release of water so that the pressure doesn't build up all at once. So this kind of he was a very, very charismatic and influential individual, but also, I think, very down to earth. And that's why all these legends about him exist, is because he really connected to the average person. And I think in many ways, it may not have been through the esoteric, the Buddhist practice per se, but it was more of his daily association with individuals, right? And I think through that they found him to be somebody that they can that inspires them, if you will. And so yeah, I don't know if the esoteric part resonated or got, you know, the average person, how they associated with that. However, that being said, in Japan, there is a very strong affinity. They call it actually hotspots. And these are spiritual hotspots. So they look for places in Japan where they can feel energy. And Mount Hoya is famous as being a spiritual hotspot. So you have pilgrims, and not just the people who belong to the Shingon tradition of Buddhism, but you'll have people from all walks of life. And as I mentioned, the 88 temple pilgrimage has become famous throughout the world. And so you'll have pilgrims from around the world just to experience it, right? So that same spiritual energy is what I think Kukai exude, that aura, if you will. And that's what drew the average person to him.
Could I ask a question, Sensei?
Yes, Michael.
I remembered reading this a long time ago, and it was in the Three Pure Land Sutras by, I think it's Isao Inagaki.
Inagaki, yes.
And it mentioned about Shingon Pure Land Master Kakuban.
Who?
Kakuban, Kakuban.
Kakuyo? K-A-K?
Kakuban.
B-A-A, Kakuban. Okay.
And one of the interesting things I found in one of the pages, they had esoteric mantras of the Nembutsu.
Yeah, and there's one of the, I guess, criticisms that we have with some of modern Shinshu is that they've tried to sterilize it so much that I think some of the mysteries of religion have been sort of washed away, and I think it's very unfortunate. And so even with the language that's used presently, I have contemporaries of mine who part of it has to do with their background. They don't like to use terminology such as Jodo Shinshu is a salvific religion, because salvation has such a strong connotation with Christianity, right? However, if you look at Shinran's writings, it is in fact a very salvific religion in the fact that it is giving yourself up to the infinite. And so I think when we talk about salvation, you have to explain it, but we shouldn't shy away from terminology. Okay, so salvation in this case is the infinite working upon us to awaken us to the oneness of existence, and it doesn't necessarily mean higher, or it could be a higher deity for all we know, but it is the infinite that's working upon us.
Because one of the things that I remembered, I actually found the book, can't believe I found the quote, but in one part it says that Kakuban emphatically states that Amida is the manifestation of Maravarachana's wisdom, and Maravarachana is the essential nature of Amitabha. Because I remembered that, thinking that was really, really interesting.
Yeah, and throughout history, there are individuals who are I think I don't know if I want to go as far as saying it's mysticism, but they just accept like the Nembutsu of as is, and they don't try to rationalize it or say it is this or that. There's a very famous monk by the name of Ippen, and he was famous for his singing Nembutsu. And so wherever he went, he would just sing Namo Amida Butsu, and he became a dancing and singing monk, and he became very famous for it. And there's actually a very, very famous wood carving of Ippen. Maybe I'll Google it and I'll show you next time. But coming out of his mouth, you have all these little statues of Amida Buddha coming out of his mouth. And that's him singing the Nembutsu. So, yeah, I think as we got into scholarly endeavors, we sometimes lose the mysteries of religion, and actually there is his name's I'm drawing a blank right now. There was a sensei here in North America, and he was actually the bishop at one point. It's going to come to me after we finish this talk. I actually know him quite well. But anyways, he always called it the wowness of life. When we awaken to the Nembutsu, it's the wowness of life. And that's what Buddhism is. It's bringing us back to the mysteries of the world, right? The wonders of the world is what it is, right? Wonders of the universe. Getting us in touch with that again. And that's very similar with say the indigenous people getting in touch with the wonders of the universe. So I think we do more harm by trying to over educate ourselves.
Okay, thank you, Sensei.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Marilyn, you look like you had some thoughts, no? Yeah. Well, thank you very much, everyone. So there won't be a class next week. I mentioned before, I have a date next week with one of my daughters. So I'm unavailable next Tuesday, but we'll have a class the following Tuesday. And the next class, I'm going to introduce you to Genshin. Genshin, who is the sixth of our seven patriarchs. He was a monk on Mount Hiei, but he was the one who really brought Pure Land Buddhism to the forefront in Japan. Where so in the mandalas that you saw today, Amida is just one of many Buddhas. Amida wasn't the central Buddha, right? Genshin is the one that really brought forth Amida as a central figure. So we'll talk a little bit about Genshin next week. Okay. So no, 2 weeks. 2 weeks from now. Don't come on next week. I won't be here. Okay. So thank you everyone for joining us again, and we'll just close with the Nembutsu. Namo Amida Butsu. No more Mandalas. No more. Thank you and good night.
Thank you very much, Sensei. Good night.
Thank
night.
you,
Good
Sensei.
Sensei. Good night.
Have a good day.
Kathy,
Thank
you were
you.
listening on your bike?
Yes.
Isn't it dangerous to drive and listen and drive at the same time? I'm kidding.
Only when I'm listening to you.
Thanks. Okay. Good night,
Bye.
everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.